So, thank you for joining me for another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And today's conversation is going to be focusing on the importance of our own personal, individual journey into our sovereignty, which actually is so mirrored outside in the world as every country that is attempting to regain their own patriotism, to renew the excitement, to for the people to be the leaders of those countries, is a perfect mirror, as within, so without, as above, so below. And one of the most beautiful things about A Course in Miracles to me is that it takes us on a journey through the process that we must go through to reclaim our sovereignty. If we don't know who we are, we cannot stand for the truth that we are a child of God, created in the image of the sovereign creator of all sovereign beings is God. But to really completely understand why the movement is for patriotism in the world, several countries. America is one of the leaders of that, not the first one, because we have countries in South America who've been doing that. El Salvador has done that. Argentina is doing that, standing for what is best for that country, putting their people first and foremost above everybody else. Now, of course, people who and this is one of the traps of the spiritualized ego, is that when we begin to realize that we are loving people, that we are one, that we were created to support and uplift one another, that is a truth of who we are. However, when we say, for example, that we should have, all the boundaries or borders should be wide open and we should let anybody come and go, in theory, that is true, because our hearts should be open and should let anybody come and go. We should not be attached to anything specific and say, okay, this one's mine, but that one cannot come in. So there is a truth to that, but we cannot operate in sovereignty if we don't do the shadow work. This is one of my favorite things about Carl Jung. He made it very, very clear that we have to face our shadow. The way you know your shadow, the irritation is the invitation. Look for the things that irritate you. Look for the things that bother you. If it bothers you that the country, has opened the borders and you're irritated by that, you got something to look at there. If it bothers you that the country is closing the border and you're irritated by that, you have something to look at there. What those irritations do for us. And that's a Laina-ism. That's just something that I say. But the Course in Miracles basically says the same thing with different words. It says that we must look at the blocks that we have created to the presence of love. What are the blocks? The blocks are the things that we guard. How do you know you've got a block and you're guarding it? You're going to get pissed off. You're going to get angry. You're going to get upset about anything that is attempting to move beyond that block. So, and of course, that every irritation is an invitation has two sides to it. One side is the irritation is an invitation to look at our ego's motivation. We have to see where the ego is motivated. Am I blocking the border? Am I closing my heart because I'm not confident inside, so I need to keep others out because I see the others as the enemy? Then the other part of it is every irritation is an invitation to see my ego, or my soul's motivation. Well, then that's a whole different story. Now the irritation is an opportunity to look at what would your soul say? What does love say? What does Jesus say? Then are you closing the border because you are insecure? Then that's an invitation to look at your insecurity. So the irritation helps us understand the thing that the ego is motivated by, the use of the irritation by the ego. And the ego is always going to put up blocks. Always, 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 always. to protect itself because it's not sovereign. It's not strong. It doesn't feel confident in who it is. The Holy Spirit on the other side, and the Course tells us this all over the place, will use everything the ego is doing. So it's going to use the blocks that have been put up to recognize what must be done within to reclaim sovereignty. So the ego is going to put up the block because it believes that we are weak, or it believes that we're superior and I need to keep the riffraff out. Holy Spirit is not going to say, take that wall down and expose yourself. The Holy Spirit is going to say, if you are in fear that something outside can get to you, let's reinforce what is within you before you take the wall down. The Holy Spirit, God, Jesus was teaching us about loving our neighbors, about doing to others as we would like them to do unto us. Not so that we would just put our guard down and go out there and become completely exposed and vulnerable and be taken advantage of. That's not what Jesus wants us to do. It is the outcome, it will be the outcome of one who is grounded solidly. We have built our house on solid ground, on the solid ground of truth. To get to that, we're going to go on a journey. That's why the spiral that I use all the time, if you look at it from above, it's a circle. It's a spiral. At the center is our most vulnerable self. This is where the egoic lie that I'm separate from God resides. So if you look at it from the top, I'm going to do it this way. If you look at it from the top and you have put up boundaries to protect yourself because you're right there in the middle and you feel small and contracted, Jesus is not saying jump from here to here if you really want to be sovereign. That would be so unfair and so unkind because the Course tells us that we are using time to undo what got built over time. Even though when we are talking about ultimate truth, this is capital T truth, time does not exist. We are non-physical. Bodies are not real. At the level of truth with a capital T, all of this is a dream. That is something that we can have that conversation with those of you who are more mature on your spiritual path. Even somebody who is kind of in the middle of the journey, not quite fully grounded in that as being their own personal sovereign truth. But if you're halfway on this journey, you at least believe that that is possible. So your mind is no longer arguing with that. But if you're early on the journey, that sounds like horseshit. What do you mean this is not real? What do you mean I don't have a body? What do you mean time doesn't exist? That's crazy talk to somebody who is at the very beginning of the journey. This is why the Course gives us very specific characteristics that we are developing on our journey through this process of awakening. So if you're a beginner, you're going to look at things very differently, and most of this stuff is going to sound like nonsense. Maybe it sounds like, you know what? I would love that. I would love it if everything was non-physical. But the mind is not yet trained into understanding how that plays out on the physical level. So if you are somebody who fully understands, like I say, maybe intermediate, fully understands that we're non-physical, then you know that the final outcome of this journey is a place of total and complete liberation. Liberation means that you have freed your mind from the constraints of the ego, meaning you're not operating in fear and contracted. You are in the world, but you're not of it. You are free to be yourself as God created you. You don't need boundaries. You have no fears. This is like Jesus walked upon this planet with zero fear. So, and if he did have a fearful thought, he knew exactly what to do. He knew how to shift and lift out of that. He knew how to get back in alignment with God and recognize the truth with a capital T and the little t truth, because it is true small t, that we have these bodies. But when you move down this path and you move into the total and complete training of your mind, and you free yourself from the limitations of a body, from the limitations of time, from the limitations that there is any authority outside of you except for God within you, until you get to that place that you're totally free, you don't need boundaries. You do not need to separate anybody. Why? Because we're all one. To get to that place of oneness with all that is, where you're walking upon this planet, where you experience, you perceive separate people, and that appears to be what is happening, 8 billion separate people. To get to the place that you walk around with no boundaries, you've got to get honest with yourself and start where you're at. And most people who come to the Course in Miracles are somewhere in either the beginning stages, and this just happens to be the first book that they read. They'll open it up and go, I don't understand this, and put it away, and maybe don't come back to it for 25 more years. I've heard that story 1,000 times. Or you pick up the Course in Miracles and you've already been on this journey a little bit, and now the Course in Miracles, it's going to supercharge your journey if you trust it. And what the Course is teaching us, whether you're a beginner or you're further along in your journey, is that you start where you're at. You call it what it is. Are you in fear? Are you in separation? Are you in a state of powerlessness? Don't take the boundary down. Don't take the borders down. If you're that afraid, keep the borders up. You're not strong enough internally to remove the barriers externally. That would be foolish. That would be to open yourself up. I mean, for example, when you are grounded in the truth of who you are, you don't care. What people think about you is none of your business. It's not important. The opinion that people have about me today, that I sound like a lunatic when I talk about, I'm not a body. I have one, but I'm not my body. Or when I am speaking about what is happening in the world and why I support certain, political candidates or parties, because I'm feeling the resonance of what they're saying within me. I'm not into the political game, the blue, the red. I'm not into that. So what they think about me doesn't matter. I don't need to put up a boundary. I don't need to block anybody from my social media because I could get offended by what they say. Doesn't matter. And the reason whatever they think of me doesn't matter is because I only care about what God thinks of me. God created me. That is my authority. That is who I listen to. And when God says that I am sovereign, that I am free, that I am love, I have to love even those people who are attempting to attack me. And this is why, Jesus said, love your enemies. Well, it's because Jesus didn't have enemies. He had people who were against him and attacked him. He didn't have to put up a wall. He didn't have to put up a barrier. If they had social media in that time, he wouldn't be blocking anybody. I don't need to block anybody because what they say does not affect me. I am in total control. That's why I'm sovereign of what I feel inside. Now, if you're newer on the journey and people say things and it still hurts your feelings, put up your boundaries. Block them on social media. Don't invite them to your house. Do whatever you need to do on the exterior to protect the interior, because the less you are irritated, the more you can listen to the Holy Spirit. I'm going to repeat that again. The irritation is an invitation to see the ego's motivation. If you don't protect yourself, if you don't set up certain boundaries, certain limits for those you think can hurt you, if you don't do that, then your mind cannot be quiet enough to listen to the Holy Spirit. Because if you don't have a boundary and you're internally going, oh my God, what they thought of me, and I can't believe they said that about me, and I can't believe they told my neighbors that about me, and I can't believe I'm on the news and they've said these terrible things about me. If you are in a state of panic, if you're in a state of worry and concern, there's no quiet in your mind. You can't listen to the Holy Spirit because the Holy Spirit is a very gentle, soft voice. It doesn't need to scream because it's a gentle voice. Again, that's why we're cultivating a characteristic of gentleness so that we can recognize that in our defenselessness, our safety lies. When you are not attempting to defend yourself from other people, it's because you feel unsafe. So if you're in worry and concern and validation and retaliation, you can't listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit. So leave up the borders, the barriers, the boundaries. It is okay, perfectly okay, until you are able to, because you've done enough work, because you've come inside, you've questioned your beliefs, you've recognized that their words, I grew up with a saying, what is it? Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I'm so glad that that was ingrained in my mind. That was part of my programming because although I hadn't said that since I was a kid, as I began my journey, I began to realize, oh, yeah, whatever they say does not need to affect me if I am sovereign, meaning I'm in control of my feelings, my emotions. If I'm the one in control of that, they can say whatever they say and it won't affect me. If I'm not in control of my feelings, then I will be like everybody else on the planet who got conditioned into giving their power away to believe that my feelings are determined by what they think. That is part of that. It is a big part of this journey. Probably one of the biggest parts of the entire process of training our mind is training our mind to think correctly. That means to get really real. Get really real. Do you feel discomfort when somebody says something, or do you feel discomfort when you think that what they said is offensive or bothersome? A simple test is pick up the thing that bothers you the most that somebody would say. Well, let's just use an example of you get really offended or really upset or really totally, completely deflated because you didn't get invited to the party. You didn't get asked to go on the walk in the woods with, the bunch of guys, or the girls had a party and they left you out. If you get upset by that, look at what about that upset you. They left you out, and that hurt your feelings. They hurt my feelings because they didn't invite me. If you dig a little deeper, it will be because you're insecure. Because if there was a group of people here that you knew that went off, but maybe they're coworkers, but you don't hang out with them all the time, and they went off and had a party, or they went off into the woods and had a walk during lunch, and they didn't invite you, didn't bother you. So it's not the act of people doing things without you that upsets you, because clearly you can have examples of both. These people didn't invite me and I don't care. I don't know them that well anyways. These people didn't invite me. I'm so offended. Then you got to look at a little deeper. What is the belief behind that? They left me out, but I don't know them. They left me out. I want to get to be known. I want to be part of the club. There's your the thought that activated how you feel. You're believing that you're being left out. You're believing that you're not valued, that you're not important. They don't invite you, and it doesn't bother you. You don't believe that that makes you unimportant. It just means that you're not that connected to them. It's okay. But why do you want to be connected to this group that left you out? Because you are looking for their validation. So you've got to look at where you're at in every given moment, and look at the beliefs that you have that will lead you to understanding the egoic insecurities that have your feelings hurt versus the confidence, the beliefs that are aligned with the Holy Spirit, with God's truth about who you are, that allows you to feel absolutely nothing. Like when these people do this thing, it's like Teflon. It flows right off of you. When these people do something, it's like Velcro. It gets attached to you. You're upset, and you will hold on to that for days and months and maybe even years. A year later comes around and those people have the same party or the same thing, and you remember, oh my God, they did it to me last year. Now they're doing it again. So for a while, keep your boundaries. Boundaries are going to be important until you get really honest with yourself and can admit you don't have to block people. You don't have to monitor what you say around people because you're afraid of saying the wrong things. Monitor yourself. All you need to monitor yourself until you have come inside and you can be honest with yourself. Honesty is key. Until you are totally honest about your insecurities, as much as you are honest about your sovereignty, wherever you are on that journey to total complete sovereignty, be honest about where you are in the process. Most people cannot be honest, and I'm speaking from experience because we think we're further along on the journey than we actually are. The ego always thinks it's further along. The ego always thinks, we're already a guru, or we're already, we're there, we're enlightened. It's part of the journey until you realize, no, I just reacted. I just lied. I just needed to protect myself. I had to defend myself. Then you can begin to move into what I call the more mature path on the journey, where you recognize, no, I'm not as advanced as I am. However, the only reason I'm not as advanced as I am in my path is because I still have beliefs that are blocking me from the truth. But at the same time, I am as holy and perfect and sovereign as I can be because that's how God created me. So when you can hold, no, I am sovereign because God created me that way, but I'm still believing beliefs that block that from me. That level of honesty that holds your perfection as God created you as your ultimate truth, and recognize also that you still have beliefs that you're listening to that are defining your experience in this reality. When you can hold both of those, I am the light, but I still block it. I am love, but I still have fearful thoughts. When you can hold those, that's when you really are understanding what honesty is about. Because honesty is a gauge that is going to assist you in moving, like grades in school, through the levels that we need to move through until we achieve total liberation, total freedom, enlightenment, awakening, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter. It's really the truth of it is you're accepting that you are as God created you 100% of the time. Until you're there, and then need no boundaries like Jesus did. He wasn't trying to protect, he wasn't running away from the Pharisees, and he wasn't creating a fortress and taught only inside of his fortress. He had no boundaries, so he went out into the world because he wasn't afraid of anybody. So what if you're going to crucify me? I'm not a body. Whoop-de-doo. Go ahead and nail me to the cross. And that is something that religion has used to scare us. That if we become that loving and that open and that vulnerable, we're going to get crucified. Classic. Let's scare you into submission. Now you've got to follow the rules of the church and follow all the things that tell you God is outside of you. So when we look at these lessons in the course, last week we looked at two lessons. We're going to continue inside of the lessons that come in the second part of the workbook, because those are the lessons that are spoken by one who is honoring the truth of who we are. You're walking in either you're walking in your sovereignty, or you are honest that your sovereignty is who you really are, but you're not quite there fully because you're still listening to the ego. So you're training your mind. You're repeating these things because they're beautiful and they're truth, even if you don't fully believe them. That's perfectly okay because that is being honest. So in the world, as I said earlier, as within, so without. And I'm going to speak specifically about America. So this particular country, we have a current administration that wanted to close the border. Now, having open borders for anybody to walk in is what the previous administration did. Before that, it was, people kind of got in and you had to find those people that were illegally in the country and they had to be expelled. Other presidents like Obama and Clinton did that. They found people and they removed them in the Bushes and Reagan. But the last administration, the Biden administration, said open border. Anybody can come in. We are not checking anything. It doesn't matter who you are, we're going to let you in. This administration with Trump said, no, we're going to close the border. We have to understand that the people who are very upset that they closed the border, many of them absolutely loving, caring people. I know a lot of them, they're on a spiritual path, upset that we would close the border. Well, again, as within, so without. Is this country ready? Have we done the work that we need to do internally to fully, completely understand what it's going to take care of the excess people that are coming in when we can't fully take care of the ones that we have here? That's the same thing with your heart. Can you fully let anybody walk into your life and tell you what they think about you? Maybe it's the person that you are at odds with. Maybe it's even your spouse. You might even live with them. Can you totally fully take your guard down and just sit there while they belittle you and go, you know what, this doesn't affect me? If you can't do that, put up your guard, put up your barriers. Be honest with yourself that you're still doing the work, that you're still having beliefs that tell you that you need to protect yourself. The purpose for setting up these boundaries, excuse me, I'm going to have to um, do this real quick. Sorry about that. The people that need to put up their boundaries, when you are conscious, meaning you're aware, I'm having to protect myself because when they call me names, I fall apart. I totally break down. So I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to stay out of the way as much as possible. Maybe it's your spouse, and they say things. So like I'll just go to my own. I like to use my own personal experiences. If my dad was drunk, well, the things that came out of his mouth were very unloving, and I remember watching my mom avoid him at all cost. Well, that's because she was protecting herself. She could not. She didn't want to take all of that belittling. So she would take the kids off. We would go off to grandma's, or if it was late at night, because he tended to drink late at night, she'd pretend she was already asleep and she couldn't hear anything. We do whatever it is that we need to do to protect ourselves. When we are unaware that we're protecting ourselves, our ego is having a field day because then the ego is telling you they have the power and you don't. That keeps you in that small, tight, afraid, protecting yourself. There is no room for God to talk to you there. Again, like I said earlier, your mind is too loud with fears and worries and concerns and plotting what to do next and how do you save yourself and how do you take revenge and how do you protect yourself. You cannot hear the still quiet voice of the Holy Spirit telling you, the love of God will sustain you. You don't need to be worried about a thing. So that you find the voice within you, the power within you that values you so much that you recognize, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. See, it's totally perfectly okay, perfectly spiritual if you hear the guidance to get out of a situation that you are not enjoying. Nobody has to stay where they're not enjoying an experience. But you cannot stay there and say, I can't find joy because of him or her. You have to say, I want to experience more joy, and this person is not fun to be with. This person, is not enjoyable. So I will do whatever I need to do to experience that joy with those who want to be, who experience their own joy and are not trying to take it away from me. So the honesty is such an important piece of this entire journey. So in these couple of lessons, today we're going to look at 225 and 226. Think of these lessons as statements of truth that we are training our mind to state, and then let's get honest. Do you, and if you're a student, a serious student of the course, and you are reading these lessons, There is a part of you that trusts that you know these things are true. But where you have to get honest is you have to acknowledge, do you believe that or not? That's our part as somebody who is mature on our spiritual journey. Do we believe it and apply it, or do we not believe it? That's why we're not applying it. But you can still recognize that they are true. You can trust that they are true, but you're not there yet. And bringing ourselves to the truth and aligning with it is what this journey is about. We're walking towards the truth and aligning with it. But to walk towards the truth, you know that the truth is the truth and you can't move that goalpost. It needs to be fixed. But then you recognize where you are in relationship to it. What beliefs are holding you from living it? That's where honesty comes in. So lesson 225. God is my father and his son loves him. And again, change the word to daughter if you need to do that. And if the word father offends you, again, the irritation is an invitation. Why does the word father offend you? In the beginning, it offended me. It bothered me because I didn't want God to be my father because I didn't like my drunk father. So I had to work through my daddy issues before I could come and recognize God as my holy daddy. But until I got comfortable with my being honest about my dad issues, the word father would really trigger me. All right, so God is my father and his son loves him. Father, I must return your love for me. For giving and receiving are the same, and you have given all of your love to me. The Course teaches us giving and receiving are the same because when there are no boundaries and love is flowing through you, what you give to others in your kindness, in your gentleness, in your creativity, in your money, in your collaboration, what you give to others is a frequency, has a frequency that you feel. You receive that high vibing frequency of joy moving through you. So to give to another is to receive the joy of the giving, no matter what it is. When you receive that joy, all that you are acknowledging is that it is a inexhaustible supply, meaning you're tapping into the abundance that God has created us in. If we are non-physical beings, there is no shortage, no limitation. This is infinite. It extends forever for because it is infinite. That's the only thing I need to say. It's infinite. So when you're tapping into that infinite source, giving becomes, it's as important as breathing. You take the breath in and you let it out. So you receive what God has given you and then you give it away. And again, with the Course, it doesn't say that we have to give away all of our stuff, although that becomes part of the journey because eventually you realize you don't want to be attached to anything. Because if you're attached to anything, you're making that thing have power over you. Remember what I talked about earlier. If you've got to hold on to this, it's because there's an insecurity in here. If you can let it go, then you are trusting you will always have what you need whenever it is that you need it. Most people, it takes them a while to get to the place that they are that free. But that's why we have the Course to help us see through honesty, where are we really in the journey? Some people are more willing to give away stuff. Some people are more willing to give away their time. I know lots of people who volunteer a lot, but don't touch your stuff. I know a lot of people who've given everything, but they're not going to volunteer their time. My time's my time. I'm not going to go help the homeless or the whatever. Perfectly okay. We're all where we're at, and there's no right or wrong in this journey. So when you understand, Father, I must return your love for me. It's not to God. That's not what God is saying. For giving and receiving are the same, and you have given all your love to me. How do you think God experiences our love? Not because we do prayer or we do meditation or we bow down on a mat, facing the sun or the west or the east or whatever direction you want to for 10 minutes a day. That's not how God feels our love. God feels our love when we are moving that love through us and extending it and expanding the kingdom. We have to understand that this is not a God like the church told us that is like a selfish God that wants us to only worship that God and pray to that God. My nose is runny today. That is not the God of the Course in Miracles. And to me, the God of the Course in Miracles is the God that Jesus came to know as one with him. This is the God that I have come to know because I've had my experiences with that God. And in the beginning of my journey, when I would feel this unconditional love from God, it's because I was extending it to somebody that I was withholding unconditional love from. When I began to open and extend that love and decide to love them no matter what, specifically my former husband, I had the barriers up. I am not going to love you the way you're treating me. And then when I kept hearing, the voice of the Holy Spirit because I had made a commitment, I got honest with myself. I'm still having some barriers. I'm still having some fears. Help me here. What do I do? Message was consistent. Extend that very thing that you're afraid to do. I was afraid to love him because he was attacking me. So what does the ego does? Well, we're going to withhold love. And I was afraid of being myself because I was afraid of being attacked. So the thing that I was fearing of being myself, I needed to do. I needed to be. And if God says that I am love, I needed to be loving. So I moved, and let me tell you, it was not easy. And it took me quite a while. By quite a while, I'm talking a couple of years of realizing that every single time I closed down and I put up a barrier, I had to get honest. I trust that I am love, but I don't believe that I can do it in this moment. I trust that God is right here with me, but I don't believe it in this moment. I'm in protection because I believe I'm alone. I'm scared. I'm over here in my mind. The ego has me convinced that he can hurt my feelings, that he can hurt me in some way, shape, or form. So understanding what is being taught in the course is crucial because it's look how thick that book is. There's a lot in here, a lot in here. So lots of pieces that we have to begin to put together. One of them is that God extends, God expands, God is infinite because we participate in the expansion. We extend the kingdom through giving the love that we have received, giving the same level of honor that we have received, seeing others as innocent as God sees us. So when you piece all of this together and you make a statement, Father, I must return your love for me, for giving and receiving are the same, and you have given all your love to me, means, Father, I must return this love. I must do my part. I must be the one who takes what I know in my head and extend it through this body vessel that I have. I've made up this body so that I can have an experience as separate from others. Let me use this to be the one who extends the kingdom. Then he goes on to say, I must return it, for I want it mine in full awareness, blazing in my mind and keeping it within its kindly light, inviolate, beloved, with fear behind and only peace ahead. This is a statement that I must return that love. You gave it to me, God. Let me extend it. Let me extend it. God doesn't want us to love God. God wants us to use the love of God and extend it so that God can continue to expand its kingdom. I want it to be mine. So if I want it to be mine, I must give it away. But I got to do it in full awareness. How does that love of God increase in me? I got to keep it moving. I got to let it keep going out. If I'm withholding it, well, if you think about a pond that no water comes to it, eventually it kind of becomes stale. It becomes water that you eventually can't even drink, and sometimes animals won't even grow in there because it's become so polluted because it's stagnant. We don't want to be that way, but yet that's how the ego uses us, keeps us stagnant. We don't give love to just anybody. We only give it to a select few. That's what the course calls special relationships. But when you begin to open up your heart and begin to extend unconditional love, even to the few people that you give to, remember, you have your boundaries for a reason. Until you're comfortable that you can love everybody fully, then you don't need those boundaries anymore. But until you still have special relationships, keep up the boundaries, but get honest with yourself and listen to the ways that you're not extending that love, because it says, I must return it, for I want it mine. If you want more love, if you want to feel that joy, that overflowing joy, happy for no reason, you got to keep extending it. That's just the way it works. Which, think about it. Isn't that a cool little trick that is part of this game? That for you to feel the best that you can possibly feel, you must be giving it away. So you can't have boundaries. So, but you have boundaries, so you feel a little less love. That's why we feel so contracted, so scared. So we got to work our way up to being an open vessel that just strictly allows everything to flow through us. So such a beautiful thing. And you recognize that not only is it in your mind, because it's blazing in your mind because you know you're not using anybody as an excuse to block love, because you're keeping love, you're staying aware of what's going on, you're keeping it within its kindly light. You're going to be kind. This is why gentleness is a characteristic of a teacher of God. You're going to be gentle with others because love is kind. We even have that in the Bible. Love is patient, love is kind. So it's inviolate. It loves everybody equally. It's beloved. And fear is behind you when you have made peace what you're stepping into. I am at peace because I'm extending the kingdom of God, meaning there is nobody that my ego is telling me that I need to stay aware and put up boundaries and afraid that they're going to hurt me. When you are operating with love coming out of you, as Jesus did, Jesus was such a beautiful example for us, then you are walking into the world extending the kingdom. You're going to love everybody, including the people who crucify you, because it doesn't matter. You know that whatever they're thinking about you is clearly an error. And it's only an error because they're believing things that are not true. That's the ego's job, to make shit up that is not true and make us think that it is and scare us into withdrawing. But when you find out the truth, you can forgive them, for they do not remember who they are. You can forgive them. They don't know what they're saying, what they're doing. They're operating from their own fears. And they're doing things based on the lies that they're holding within themselves. That requires, if you're more advanced on your journey, those are the ones you really want to forgive. That's why when I look at the world today, and there's all the characters that people are, throwing daggers at this side or that side, the pro-war, the anti-war, whatever. I just look at all of them with so much love in my heart. I'm so grateful that they're playing the roles that they're playing, because those who are getting honest can look at those irritations as invitations to see where are they on their journey. So I sit in gratitude for whatever somebody is doing that is irritating me or somebody else. They are providing the classroom, they're providing the opportunity for us who are being honest to take a step further on the journey. Think about that. Do you realize how peaceful I operate when there's nobody for me to be mad at or angry or have to protect myself from? I'm free to be me. That's what's so amazing about this journey. My the ego doesn't have a whole lot of free rent in my head, because I have evicted so many of those thoughts. My head is my space. The thoughts that are in my head are very few and far in between, because I don't need to be thinking all the time. That's what the ego does. I follow inspiration. Inspiration are not really thoughts in the head. Inspiration comes in from within. Then I use my head as a tool. Okay, how do I do this? I get inspired to write a newsletter and I get a subject. Then how do I do it? Oh, okay, I've got to schedule the time in my calendar for when I'm going to have, a good couple of hours to sit down and write and edit and do all of those things and post it and create images and all of that. I use my head my human head, as a tool to do the things that are inspired through my heart. And I know that inspiration comes to God. I give credit to God for everything that is beautiful, that is wonderful, that is inspiring, that comes through me. Because I know that I am here to extend the kingdom. I have become clear about that. Now, before, no, 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 no. I'm not going to give God free rent in my head. Absolutely not. Or in my heart. When I was in the middle of the journey, I had to take all credit. Oh, wow, Laina, she wrote a great article. Oh, she's going to become a New York Times bestseller. And it was all about my ego getting credit. Then I had to continue on my journey because I wanted total liberation. And total liberation meant anything that I was looking to give me, to make me look good, it had to go. It had to totally go. But that's just me. And as I continue further along on the path, needing to get approval from other people, needing to get a big audience, needing to get people, oh, look at me, look at what Lina did. No, that's not my jam anymore. This is about I am extending what God is doing through me. I'm sharing how it's working in me. I'm sharing the changes in my life. If that inspires you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. That is okay too. There's not a shortage of people on YouTube or on any platform sharing what they know. You have to pick the ones that resonate with you. So the last sentence here is how still the way your loving son is led along to you. That sentence says so much. How still the way. Until you take control of your mind, until you are listening to the thoughts in your head, taking those irritations, addressing them. Again, like Carl Jung said, look at the shadow, meaning look at the part that you weren't aware was there before. Look at what is behind the appearances of what makes you scared. Look beyond that. Look at the beliefs that are blocking you from the awareness of the truth of who you are. Nobody should be afraid. Nobody, not a single person should be afraid. Fear is arising because we don't know who we are. And those who have taken advantage of understanding how the mind works, but haven't really opened up their heart, utilize fear as a strategy to put people in bondage. All of that has to be addressed. All of that has to be looked at because that is just the way that the ego operates, which is why maybe we need borders to clean up our own internal turmoils, to get our own people in our own country to return to a place of loving their neighbors and to a place of transparency and honesty. We got to clean up the government. The government's a reflection of our own lies and deceptions. If we are upset that the government is corrupt, let's look at the corruption within our own house. Let's look at where we lie and cheat to one another. Let's look at the corruption within our own heart. Where do we lie and cheat to ourselves? If you're believing that you're not good enough, if you're believing that you should be afraid, that you're not capable, you're lying to yourself. Your mind is corrupted. So, of course, there's corruption on the outside because it's a projection of what's on the inside. So, close the borders, put up your barriers, put up your boundaries, and do your inner work. And to be able to really get to the place that you experience the peace that passes no understanding, you must create the still way to that. And that stillness comes from your willingness to stop those voices in your head, stop believing them. And when you stop believing them, they stop multiplying the way they normally do. They say that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. I used to think that was normal. I used to live with insanity in my head, and I thought that was normal. And in the beginning, when I started getting a little bit of stillness and quiet, it was like, oh my God, am I losing my mind? Yes, I am losing my mind. I'm getting rid of the part in my mind that is driving me crazy. And in that space, I was like, oh my gosh, it's quiet up there. It startled me in the beginning when I had moments of quiet. And I would go, what's happening? Am I getting Alzheimer's? Because I was afraid that I was losing my mind. But yet, the paradox is you have to let go of all of that. Just as we have to declutter our exterior, we have to declutter the mind. And the thing is that to declutter your mind, all you have to do is stop thinking the thoughts that are not true. It really is that simple. I know it's not easy because we believe lies and we keep perpetuating them. Um, so it takes time. But how still the way your loving Son is led along to you. The Holy Spirit will lead us to God. It will lead us to God when the mind gets still. We do the work of quieting the mind. Holy Spirit will do the work of leading us to God. It's that simple, but we have to do our part. And oftentimes you can't start this journey of getting still and quiet without having some boundaries, some barriers up. You got to do that in the beginning. So honor the boundaries, honor the barriers, recognize that they are important on this path to sovereignty. We've got to know who we are. Americans, we don't know who we are. We've let everybody else in and we don't really know who we are. We don't even really know what our culture is, what our morals are. We've got to establish that. And once you establish that, once we become a country again where we value one another, where there's transparency, where the corruption is over because we have taken control of our government, we have become participants in what happens there. We don't just give our power away. We don't let somebody else tell us how things are done. When we become an active participant in our own liberation, we willingly become an active participant in the liberation of our community, of our country, because until every country is free to be themselves, we cannot have a world that is okay bringing down borders, because everybody has to find pride within themselves. We have to be that's an important part. Pride is right there. Pride comes right before courage. And you know what pride is? It's not about all the colorful flags, the rainbow flags and all of that. The word pride has been co-opted by a very small group of people. And I am all for every whatever you want to call it, the LGBTQP, there's so many, elemental P, I don't know how many more gender ideas there are. They're all okay. They're all perfect, but they're not the only ones that get to have pride in who they are, identified in that individual way. I am not going to judge how you identify yourself at. Even if you identify yourself as a cat, I know some people do that. I am only interested in you identifying yourself as a child of God who gets to be uniquely you, however you feel that allows you to be yourself. We shouldn't have a pride things for people who feel marginalized and then they get to come out and have their event. Just as I don't believe that we should have pride parades for anybody who maybe it's the majority group. I don't believe in any of that. I believe that everybody should have their own inner personal pride. Be you, uniquely you as God created you. And the reason we have these groups that protect the minorities is because it keeps us divided. While we believe in minorities and majorities, we're still divided. When we just follow what the Constitution says, all men are created equal, endowed by God with the same inalienable rights. When we protect everybody's rights, then we don't have to have special rights for anybody. And the Course in Miracles is really clear. Is really clear. We've got to get rid of specialness, but you can't get rid of specialness until you come to know who you are. And you come to know who you are is very offensive to the ego because you'll come to find out you're just like every other child of God. There's no difference in who you are as God sees you. Powerful, creative, and absolutely magnificent. How you express that is totally up to you. God does not need to protect this group over that group because God didn't make this little group weak and that little group or that bigger group strong. That is all mentally created. That is all egoic BS belief system. In case you were thinking I was going to say a bad word, but it also is bullshit because it blocks you from being the light that you are. So when we look at these lessons, we're just helping ourselves remember, taking the time to be quiet, to be still, to remember the truth. The second paragraph, ah, I love how Jesus talks to us. Brother, we're talking to Jesus here. Brother, we find that stillness now. The way is open. Now we follow it in peace together. You have reached your hand to me, and I will never leave you. This is Jesus letting us know we have made this commitment and we're going there together. Sentence 5, we are one, and it is but this oneness that we seek as we accomplish these few final steps, which end a journey that was not begun. Man, is that a doozy. I need a minute here. So when we acknowledge Jesus is walking this path with us, we have to get into stillness. You got to quiet the mind. Leave your boundaries, your barriers, if you feel that you need to do that to find your quiet space. And in that quiet space, the way is open. Now we follow it in peace together. Jesus, what would you have me do? What are you teaching me? Jesus came to teach 2,000 years ago that we needed to look at our belief systems. We needed to stop believing that God is outside of us. All of those rules, laws, and regulations that the Jewish faith had, all those commandments and things like that. Jesus boiled it down to two simple things: love your neighbor as yourself and love God. Very simple. To do that, you needed to train your mind. You needed to start thinking differently. So what Jesus taught 2,000 years ago, a lot of it left out from the Bible because that wasn't convenient to the emperor. You can't reign over a bunch of people when everybody's sovereign and doing their own thing. So what do? You make them afraid, you control them, and you let them know that they're not good enough unless they go through your organization to get to God. Oh, and by the way, then they also have to pay you to get there. Isn't that amazing how that works? I mean, it's just fascinating when you look at the politics of religion. But Jesus told us that 2,000 years ago, and Jesus, through A Course in Miracles, is giving us the same message. And why do we get this message from Jesus? Because all minds are joined. We are one mind. And when one mind gets still enough to receive a message, then it can share it with others. Isn't that beautiful? That Helen Schuckman received this information. She and Bill, her business partner at the time, was hearing this amazing stuff that was coming out of Helen. And Helen was the first one that I have ever heard say this. She says, when asked about what did she think about the Course in Miracles, about all this stuff that came out of her, she says, I know it's true, but I don't believe it. Talk about honesty. She trusted it. It came through her. She that wasn't her ego mind. This was information that came through her. Look at this stuff. No human could have written this the way that it came out. Took her 7 years to give us the Course in Miracles. But every bit of it that came through her came directly from our brother. And he's telling us, get your mind in peace, and we're going to walk this path together. So reach out your hand to me, make a commitment. Jesus, I know this is true. I don't fully believe it, but help me here. We are one, Jesus tells us. And it is but this oneness that we seek. We're moving out of specialness. We're moving out of separation and limitation and segregation and all of those things that the ego finds so interesting. Because we're going to accomplish these few final steps, which end a journey that was not begun. This takes me back to what I said earlier, why it is important to be honest. We are appearing to be here, separated, individual people acting as 8 billion individual people on the planet. Here's the truth. The truth is that we are as God created us. This truth we've never left. This is a journey that never began. We are not what we are as God created us. It appears that we're going on a journey to remember the truth of who we are and to accept the truth of who we are is to question our thoughts, to look at our beliefs, to look at our boundaries, to look at the irritations that make us feel insecure. So we do the work over and over and over and over again. And it's just our mind. Our mind got hijacked by the ego and pulled into these stories that are not true. And all we're doing is accepting what we are. So the journey of acceptance is to return to where what we never left. This is what we are. We cannot not be the perfect, innocent, amazing, magnificent, holy children of God. That is what we're returning our minds to by looking at the thoughts and the beliefs that tell us otherwise. This is why this is so beautiful when you understand and come to trust what the Course is telling you, and you sit with what it is telling you, and you dissect the message until you fully accept it and appreciate it and embody it within you. So keep your boundaries on the journey until you no longer need them. It's perfectly okay. Keep the borders closed until we get the country into a place that we take care of our own business. Just as we have to do internally, we have to do externally. We clean up our inner house and become honest and end the corruption inside. We clean up our country and become honest and end the corruption outside. Now, when somebody comes in, they either assimilate or it's easy to see that this may not be the country for them. And then it's not a matter of being racist or bigoted or anti-Semite, whatever those are all words that the ego has made up to keep us separated. Bottom line, bottom line, if you know who you are, you're going to stand sovereign and love will be all that you'll be able to extend. Why? Because you must return the love that God has given us by extending it. Until you do, you're not going to fully be happy consistently. You're not going to find the peace that passes all understanding consistently. You're not going to swim inside of the knowingness that this is an abundant world consistently. And that's why honesty is important, because it is the consistency of applying these truths that allow us to eventually be honest. Let's look at the second lesson, lesson 226. My home awaits me. I will hasten there. Again, we have never left the truth of who we are, so why slow down? Let's hasten there. Why waste time being miserable when we can hurry up and be happy? And that's the whole point of the Course. You want to get to happiness sooner? Stop being grumpy. Stop being judgmental. Stop being dishonest. Then you'll arrive to happiness faster. Sentence one in paragraph one. If I so choose, and this is why we have free will, if I so choose, I can depart this world entirely. Meaning, yeah, if you so choose and you understand how things are, you could decide, you know what, I'm out of this world, and you could literally die instantaneously. This is what Elijah did. It's documented in the Bible. He stepped out of his house and he turned into a ball of light. Or if you let the ego run the show, then you can, through suicide, you can depart if you want to. But here's the thing. Everybody reincarnates at the level of consciousness that you leave at. And this is why when my son was having those thoughts of killing himself when he was doing drugs, I used to say to him, are you killing yourself because you're happy? Mom, of course not. I'm unhappy. I'm like, then why would you want to kill yourself when you're at your lowest point? Because you reincarnate, you're going to come back there. Do you want to do this twice? Or would you like to do this just once? And let's work through this. Let's do the inner work that needs to be done to get you to the point that you hasten to the happiness that you want to experience. And of course, at the time, he didn't like that. But then as he thought about it, thank goodness he had enough intelligence, awareness, self-awareness to realize, oh, wait a second, if it's bad once, don't you think it's going to be bad twice? Oh my God. So I would tell him, you have to choose. And it starts very clearly. If I so choose, I can depart this world entirely. It is not death which makes this possible. Again, don't try to commit suicide. That's not what's going to get you out of the insanity. But it is change of mind about the purpose of the world. You have to change your mind about what's going on here. You got to change your mind about the opportunity before us. We are here to extend the love of God, but we have been brainwashed. We have been given, belief systems, a lot of BS that tells us that we're here to serve the world, that we're in a way that we're supposed to give our joy, our happiness, and become slaves to the powers that be. And right now we're seeing those powers that be get dismantled, and soon we're all going to say, powers that were. But we have to be honest. We have to recognize there are a lot of people that we still think have power over us. If somebody has power over you, if the IRS scares you and has power over you, you're not sovereign. You're not standing in your sovereignty. So get honest about that. Where are my fears? If you need to, because you're afraid of the IRS, put up a boundary and send that check so that they leave you alone, by gosh, do it. But be honest with yourself. Every single thing that you do, I'm going to give you a little challenge. This week, every single thing that you do, ask yourself, if I didn't do this, how would I feel? If you start getting anxious, if you start getting worried, if you're about to not pay that bill, go, wait a second, I got to pay the electric bill. If not, I won't have electricity. Just question why? Why do I have that anxiety? Well, because that's the way things are. According to who? Well, according to the government, according to the city, according to the power company. Oh, okay. Then recognize you're in the world. You got things that you have to do, but do them with love in your heart. I'm so glad that I'm in this world and I've got electricity. I'm going to joyfully send this check. So if you want the things with the electricity company to change, then begin to question other ways to access electricity. Tesla discovered, not the Tesla today of Elon Musk, but the Tesla of over 100 years ago, knew that we could have access to free energy. If you want to go down an interesting rabbit hole, go down that rabbit hole. You will see that Tesla came to the powers that be at the time with models for free electricity. And guess what? They didn't like that. Guess what they did with his information, his patents, and all of the things that he had discovered? They made sure they did not see the light of day. Why? Because why are we going to give people free electricity when we're making money off of them? Well, when we get selfish and greedy and there's corruption, then we make certain that we don't share with our brothers and sisters that which would be beneficial for all. Because they wanted the abundance for themselves, they were greedy. They did not allow what Tesla came to bring to humanity. And sweet man Nikola Tesla died poor and alone. I think he died in a hotel room, all alone and destitute, because he had something to bring to humanity. And it was not accepted because at that time, it just wasn't. Those who got his ideas made sure that the rest of us did not benefit from them. But we're moving to a world that things are becoming much more transparent. Not fully yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there because we're demanding transparency. But can you handle the truth? I'm channeling my inner Jack Nicholas here. Can you handle the truth? Well, the truth is that we're powerful beyond measure, and we've given our power away to those on the exterior. And because we gave our power away, then they run the show. They tell us what we can and cannot do. And most people think they're free, but you're not really in the game. Now you are free. Why? Because you're sovereign. Why? Because this journey didn't even begin. You're in the mind of God, safely imagining that you're bound by the powers that be. Isn't that a fascinating paradox? It's so fascinating. When you free your mind, you realize, oh, wait a second, this is all a game. But until you're prepared to play the game by your rules, which are God's rules, meaning by the rules of love, where you are free, where you're not afraid, keep your boundaries, keep the borders until you clean up your own inner house. You have to clean up your inner house. You've got to find out who you are as an individual, as a country, and eventually as a planet, so that we can let go of these silly rules and regulations that we have put up that benefit a few to the detriment of the many. Now, we have all agreed to play that game, but now many of us want to change the rules of the game. We're not going to play that game anymore. The next sentence says, again, this is all about that you get to choose entirely how this happens. You have to change your mind about the purpose of the world. Sentence 3, if I believe it has a value as I see it now, so will it still remain to me. If I value somebody telling me what to do, you're going to be on the side of the bifurcation, meaning what timeline are you going to live in? Because everybody's creating their own reality. Pretty soon, those realities are going to become so glaringly different that you will gravitate to one side or the other because vibrationally, our thoughts create our reality. We are going to be living the reality that we believe we deserve, the reality that we value. If we value transparency, we're going to be good with anything that makes the world more transparent. We're not going to be opposing the groups that want to expose corruption. We're going to be on the side of exposing the corruption. If you still value corruption, if you don't want that to be exposed, if you're against the Doge groups or whatever that is exposing the things that are maintaining the lies about how the money of the American taxpayers are used, then you are valuing lies and corruption. That means that's inside of you. This is not a judgment at all. It's honesty. It's honesty. If you are standing on the side of transparency, you're moving into the co-creation of a world that will be transparent because you're already that. And you become the change you want to see, and you will attract more who operate at that level. If you are against exposing the corruptions, if you are defending the lies and the cheating, you are vibrating at that frequency. That's going to be your reality. It's not a punishment. It's not a punishment at all. God created us free, but you're using your freedom to choose what you want to experience from the level of the non-physical, from the level of where we truly are that we've never left. We get to choose what dream we're dreaming. This is why the course calls the happy dream, the dream that is lived from a place where we have done the inner work and we are there's no more boundaries, there's no more barriers, there's no more blocks to living in oneness with one another, extending love, and everything becomes equal. If you like the separation and you like the division and you like the secrecy, and really it's not that many people who like that, but apparently there's a lot of marches that support that kind of mindset, then you are saying yes to that being your reality. This is not better than this. This is not better than this. They're just paths that we're taking because you are either honest about what's happening here and you're extending love, or you don't know the truth at this level and you're just simply following the path that you're on, which is also perfectly good. But they have different consequences. That's the thing. That's when we can really become honest, is when we can see the consequences and we're choosing consequences instead of the actions that get us there first. So it tells us, sentence 3, if I believe it has a value as I see it now, meaning the world as it is, so will it still remain for you, for me. So it's okay. This is, again, why honesty is so important. You got to know what's going on here. But if I see no value in the world as I behold it, nothing that I want to keep as mine or search for as a goal, it will depart from me. If you're done with external authorities, with the old medical systems, the old education systems, the old corrupt political systems, if you're done with that, you're going to shift. If you're not done with that because you think it's good and you want to go back to the old days, when basically to go back to the old days is simply saying, I want to go back to the corruption being there, the lies being there, but we didn't talk about that. You just want to go back to when things were you were kept in the dark. For a lot of people, that's what going back to the good old days is about. For those who want to go forward to a world of peace, means bring on the lights. Let's shine the light on everything that has been in the shadow, everything that has been in the dark. Let's look at it and take responsibility for it. But to do that, sometimes we need our boundaries and our borders so that we can clean up house individually, as a country, as a community, and then we can take down the borders because we are operating at a very high frequency of transparency. Now corruption cannot happen. Now cheating and lying is not possible. We get to choose. That's what's so amazing about the course. It tells us over and over and over and over and over again. This is not going to be forced on you. This is a choice that you get to freely make based on the information that is provided to you with the course. If you trust it, you will do the work that is required to get you to believe that it is true, and then it will be true for you. If you don't trust it, then you stay where you're at, and it's okay. God is not going to punish you. And those who move to this timeline of transparency and honesty and recognizing that we're all one are not going to judge you. You cannot be on the side of oneness and judge a brother or a sister, because you know is to judge them is to judge yourself. This is where you love them and you let them be. And that is a big sign of maturity. And that is a sign of how honest are you being with applying the truths that you're receiving here. Then it says in the last sentence, but let me read sentence 4 and then I'll tie it up with the last one, which is 5. But if I see no value in the world as I behold it, nothing that I want to keep as mine or search for as a goal, it will depart from me. For I have not sought for illusions to replace the truth. On this side is the truth, capital T. On this side is the illusion of separation. Over here, we still operate in separation, but we allow the truth to guide us. When you allow the truth to guide us, it's going to be a happy dream. It's going to be a very different world. From this place, somebody like Nikola Tesla, comes up with something that provides free electricity. It will be imperative that everybody that participates in that ensures that that becomes the reality for all of us. It will not be corruption. It will not be money that runs the world. Greed will not be part of this because we will be operating in abundance. We will know that we're powerful, and we will accept that every one of us is bringing ideas that allows for us to have a whole and complete experience. And some will bring the ideas of how to have free electricity. Some will bring the ideas of how to make sure that food is abundant. But to do that, we have to be transparent. We have to be honest, and we must be selfless. We must operate in equality. On this side, nobody has to have more than anybody else. To move from here to here, you have to do your inner work. You have to come inside. You got to look at all the places where you're afraid. If you have no fears, then you are never going to operate in lack and limitation. And anything that is good for you will be good for all, because everything will be for the greater good of all. But you got to be honest about who you are, your relationship to God, and who everybody else is to have the experience in the happy dream that is possible. You can't go here if you're in corruption, because you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. In the midst of all these bright lights, some person lying and cheating, we're all going to see it. We're all going to recognize it. That's why it cannot fly here. That's why we got to close our borders and clean up what's happening in our own country, clean up what's happening in our own lives. We've got to become totally transparent before we open up the borders, before we take down the boundaries to our heart. We really need to know what's going on and taking responsibility for it. Paragraph 2 says, Father, my home awaits my glad return. God is just saying, come on, come on. The door's always been open. God is pure happiness. So of course God is happy when you return. Of course God is happy when you return. Your arms are open and I hear your voice. What need have I to linger in a place of vain desires and of shattered dreams when heaven can so easily be mine? Think about that. It's like I used to tell my son Spencer. He would tell me how terrible it was. He was doing drugs and school was going bad, and his friendships were only were friends if he had drugs, and it was so sucky. And I would say to him, "Why do you keep doing it then?" "Well, Mom, I can't stop it." Yes, you can, but you have to override your mind that tells you that you can't. So he lasted 4 years inside of that addiction. 4 years. Some people last 40 years. And who knows how many have reincarnated doing the same thing over and over and over again. But we have to get really clear. We've got to get really honest. Our mind is where the power exists. We need to change our mind. If you don't like corruption, stop being corrupted. If you don't like corruption, stop blaming those people for being corrupt. Because if that irritates you, it's an invitation to see the corruption inside of you. And the corruption is nothing more than, corrupt software. You got a virus in your head. It's time to get antivirus software. Clean it up. Course in Miracles is an antivirus software. If you apply what the Course tells you, you're going to get rid of the viruses in your head. The viruses are the lies that we have accepted just because other people have been saying that it is so, and we agree to that it is so, doesn't mean that it has to be so. You have to be courageous enough and take pride in yourself. You got to become an inner patriot and believe that you deserve that level of freedom. Because when you believe that you deserve that level of freedom, I know that's what happened to me. I realized I am not going to go back to suffering. Once I tasted that freedom, now it took me years from when I first tasted it before I totally committed to doing whatever it took to stand in that freedom. I still needed to be right too much, more than I needed to be at peace. But once I shifted to no, I wanted peace more than I wanted to be right, guess what happens? You come to peace and my gosh, you're right, because you're in your right mind. But I didn't realize how simple it was. I didn't realize how joyful it was. But it's being in your right mind. You don't need to be righteous. You don't make the other people wrong. It's a total different way of operating inside of what God wants for us, God wills for us. It's been created. We've never left it. It's still there. But you have to make the decision. How bad do you want it? How important is peace and honesty and integrity and transparency to you? You will see. Again, try it for a week. Don't do the things that you think you're supposed to do, and you're going to see where you still have attachments, where you still have fears, where you still have worries. Those are the things that have corrupted the mind. Those are the viruses that we need to relinquish. And you cannot let them go until you acknowledge them. You have to see them to release them. So, anyways, thank you for being part of this Ascension with A Course in Miracles transmission today. This was a lot of fun. This is good. I got to go back and listen to this. There are some notes to self here for me. I love you all. I will see you next week, or I'll see some of you in the Awareness Academy where we go even deeper into the Course in Miracles. So, you guys take care. And by the way, none of this was false, even because today is April Fool's. None of this was a joke. It's all true. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.